You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
It's Wednesday night, time for the Paranormal Experienced radio show with host Kat Hobson. Kick back, relax, and get ready to learn. Welcome to the show. Now, here's Kat.
Good evening. Welcome back to Paranormal Experienced Radio this lovely Wednesday evening. I am Kat Hobson, your host. Before we get started, I just have to tell people that Michael is a serious storm. I know so many people have been devastated. Some of my very favorite towns along the Big Bend of Florida are, well, some of them probably aren't still there tonight. And I've never seen a storm that big. It was astounding. I just wanted to let y'all know that we support you. We will be helping to do what we can to get you assistance once things are recognized as your needs. And mainly, if you're listening to this, I hope that you're safe and that your loved ones are safe. And just know that our community and our country and everyone is praying for you, and we're very hopeful for you. And we will be supporting you till you get right. Now, tonight's guest is one of the best EVP specialists in the country. I would argue that he makes definitely the top 5. I think he's brilliant. His information and his evidence is astounding. Tony is the founder of Entity Voices, PI. He is just a genuinely good person. He is someone who doesn't mind sharing and taking other people along on this experience so that other people can get the work results that he does. He is involved now with the Copper Canyon. I believe he owns it. And Tony, if I'm mistaken, please feel free to correct me. The Copper Canyon Paranormal Research Center. And on top of everything else, you brought EVPs. I'm very excited about that. These EVPs were caught where?
They were caught inside the Copper Canyon Paranormal Research Center by my wife and I.
And that was your first time, right?
It was. We had our eye on this building for years because it's a very unique building. It was built in 1919, and it was constructed by the New Cornelia Mining Company, and it was literally designed to be the hospital for the miners that worked in the copper mine and their families. And they supported this. Then later in the 20s or 30s, Phelps Dodge came in and took over the mining operation. So it was known as the Phelps Dodge Hospital at that point. But due to copper prices falling, due to union strikes, it shut down and it closed down. The mine ended in 1985 and the hospital closed in 1986. And it literally has sat empty for the last 38 years.
Oh my word.
So we got an opportunity, and this was a strange experience because, like I said, we had our eye on that location for years, but never knew who owned it or, how to get into it. And one day on Facebook, I just opened it up and there was a tour happening. And of course, we took advantage of it and we took the tour and we got the opportunity to investigate it for about, I think it was about 4 hours or so, nighttime hours. And what we came out of there with had absolutely blown me away. I mean, Cherie and I have been all over the country in some of the most notable haunted locations across the U.S., and some of them are very good. But this place, I mean, I can't even explain it. There was a draw, there was a connection, and the EVPs that were coming out of there were so strong and so clear. That's when we started to figure out who was the owner, how we could let other paranormal investigators get an opportunity to experience this type of interaction, this type of connection. And after, turning Entity Voices, which was a hobby, now into Entity Voices LLC, and of course the Copper Canyon LLC, it's been a process, and it's definitely kept us busy. But the outcome of this will give so many other people in the field an opportunity to really experience the things that we have. And I think it'll be a learning experience for everyone and an opportunity to share some amazing captures.
Well, I think that one of the things about this, and probably from the history of this building and the time frame that it's set dormant, these spirits were just waiting for someone. And I think that's beautiful that you are taking the steps to make sure that other people get to encounter them and interact with them. I can't tell you how much I respect that.
Thank you very much. One of the very first EVPs that I pulled off of our recordings when we were first in there, we probably weren't in there more than 15 minutes, but the EVP literally says, "Who are these people?" Meaning, you're absolutely right. They had been left alone for the last 38, 40 years roughly, and had no interaction.
Right.
And they knew we weren't there on a regular basis. Of course, now we are, but at that time, yeah, they're literally asking, "Who are these people?" So it was very interesting. But yeah, you could tell there had been a long dormancy of communication with interaction with living humans, and they showed that. It was incredible.
Well, would you like to play that one?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Well, let's see if we can't get this to everybody. Here we go.
Oh, what is this? Oh, this is where we came in.
Oh, I'm going to play that again because I love that. Here we go.
Oh, what is this? Oh, this is where we came in.
The tone that it asks that question in is just like, we're being invaded. Almost.
Exactly.
It's like,
well, that's exactly what we thought. And like I said, that wasn't more than being in the building about 10 minutes, and to have that instantly come forward, I knew that the rest of the data that we had to go through was going to be great to see what else was there, and it was. But it was just such an interesting statement out of a voice that came out of nowhere. Who are these people? It was great.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the next line would have been, "And why are they here?"
Right, exactly.
I love when you can get the inflection to catch the mood like that. You're very good at that.
Thank you. The cool thing about this building is that, like I said, the history of it, and we didn't know the full history when we stepped inside. It was just the draw to the building. I mean, it's got this Spanish architecture to it that isn't seen very often, and it's a very Southwest style building. And had that building been in Phoenix, 3 months after it had gone abandoned, it would have been torn down and replaced. That's what happens in Phoenix. But because this town of Ajo is literally in the middle of nowhere, they have the original structures that have stood for centuries. And even if they're not being used, they're still up, they're still standing. And this building is one of those. And like I said, that itself and it's rare. And the typical Southwest history of the fact that people were mining, and you had the Spanish mining, and you had Europeans that had come in to mine, because apparently this town had these 3 mountains that literally glowed with metallic minerals in it.
Oh,
And when the
wow.
sun hit it, it literally shined. So mining had been happening in this town for centuries. And it wasn't until the new Cornelia or Jonathan Greenway came in and really set up a full-fledged mining operation, had a railroad put in so they could move the ore out. This mining had been going on, and there were fights over it and gunfights over the individual mines that were there. So it's the history of it is just so dramatic. So you've got that whole Southwest style history that goes along with, the people that were born there, died there, babies that were born and died there because there weren't vaccines that weren't available till after World War II. So the whole story just comes together and portrays this building just phenomenally from a historic perspective. And then to be able to back it up with these voices that are coming from inside the building just absolutely fascinates us.
Well, I can see why. Erin in chat was just blown away, and she said, so clear, a woman, the voice quality. And, that's what blew me away when I was loading these. After you sent them, I was just kind of like, whoa, this is bizarre.
Yeah, and we've been very fortunate for capturing very clear sounding EVPs in lots of locations that we go to. But this one, I don't know if it was a connection directly to my wife and I. I don't know if we just got lucky. But yes, they are extremely clear. They are very audible, and it's not a single word. It's full sentences.
And there's so many, because something I don't think people realize, and I was going to share one of the pictures from your page and the video, but I thought that maybe we would just talk about this, is the absolute mind-numbing sometimes work that y'all go through. There was a picture of you and Cherie reviewing. You each had your own computer in front of you. You each had your headphones on. It was obviously going to be a while, or had been a while, right? But
right.
Anytime that you're investigating, I learned this quickly, right, with my cameras, is that you stop the cameras and you stop the recorders, and you break. Yeah, I can do maybe 15 or 20 minutes without a break, without fading off and doing something, ADD. But y'all get so much evidence to review, and I still have so much evidence to review, and of course residentials come before anything else, but it's just amazing to me. I know what y'all go through doing these reviews. And the first time that you left Copper Canyon, how long did it take you to go through that evidence to come up with these?
It took weeks,
Right?
but only because of everything else that was going on. But the review process itself takes usually 2 to 3 times what the investigation was. So let's say we investigated 4 or 5 hours. Well, you can count 15 to 20 hours of review of video, audio, pictures. I mean, it's an intensive time constraining response to go through those 4 or 5 hours of recording. My setup will record 3 or 4 video cameras at a time. Different angles behind me, in front of me, then the audios we leave in certain rooms, DVR cameras. So yeah, however long the investigation was, it's 3-4 times that to go through the what's collected.
People don't realize that. People that, watch all the television investigators have everything done in 20 minutes. Well, maybe 40, right? But it just is so much work. And I think that sometimes discourages people who think, oh, well, I'm going to be a paranormal investigator, right? Because the work level is quite more than is shown.
Absolutely. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happens, and it takes a lot of time. I don't think Cherie and I have sat down in the last 3-4 months and had a normal night lately, because there's always something to do. There's always something to review. And we have data that's been sitting, that we've collected since the first time we stepped foot in that building. We were filming, there was a music group that heard that we had opened the building, and they had a new song they're releasing, and it has very sort of haunted tones, and they found out that we had opened the building, and they asked to film there. Well, during the filming, Cherie, my wife, went off and went to different floors where it was quiet and did recordings, and that was weeks ago, I still have not had an opportunity to go through those.
And there's stuff there, right? I
I know
there
that,
has to be stuff there.
Absolutely. I'm sure there is. I just haven't had the time to look at it yet.
Well, I love your work. We met actually when you had submitted evidence for the Supernatural and Paranormal University's evidence contest.
Yep.
And you won.
I did. I was lucky, and they took a look at one of my FLIR captures from, I think that was the Hotel San Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
And we caught this figure that literally walked across the hallway without any body heat at all. And, I remember watching that thing 100 times going, okay, is this reflection? Is there something? Is my shadow? How is this happening? Could never figure it out. And it's a phenomenal piece. And it was a great capture that we happened to just be in the right area at the right time.
Well, you really were. And I thought that was so fantastic. And
thank you.
I'm sorry that everything relevant to that show and such didn't quite work out the way it was supposed to, but I'll tell you, I don't know if you would have had time right now. You were 200 miles an hour getting all this stuff going. But
you know what? And that's very true. And you know what the funny part is that, like I said, when we finally got into it wasn't the Copper Canyon. It was the old Phelps Dodge Hospital, and
mm-hmm.
and Ghost Adventures were out there about 5 months ago, and they investigated it. But there's been very few people outside of that inside this building. But the thing is that when this all sort of fell together, normally my wife and I, when we're talking about spirits or catching EVPs or anything from the paranormal world, we're usually interacting with other people from the paranormal world. So if you say spirit, if you say EVPs, they're kind of household words, and nobody really is shaken up by it because we're talking about it within the community.
Right.
But when we had to start taking like entity voices, turning it into an LLC, and talking about getting, liability insurance, and explaining this to people who don't normally deal with anything in the paranormal, it was kind of funny because we got some very strange reactions, strange looks. Wait a minute, you want liability insurance for what?
Right.
And,
yes.
Okay, this is an October haunted house, right? I'm like, no. This is a 365-day-a-year research center. Oh, okay. So that was humorous.
That is humor. But, I can actually relate because I was taking people to do things paranormal, and I called my insurance company and said, I need a binder. I just need some sort of rider to cover me for liability purposes on paranormal investigations. And she was like, what?
Yep.
I said, you know what I do? I said, but I need something to give these, these locations so that they know that, a bond,
right.
a bond and a rider. And so it took her a hot minute, but she figured it out eventually. So for which I was grateful. But you know what?
But
We are up on our first break. We are going to be gone for about 3 minutes. And y'all just enjoy the music, and we will be back on the flip side.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
And we're back with Tony Rathman of Entity Voices and the Copper Canyon Paranormal Research Center. I am so looking forward to my next trip west because I'm coming. I'm going to find a way to make that happen.
Perfect.
Is it in the Phoenix area?
Well, that's kind of the one caveat about where this location is. It's just under 2 hours from Phoenix, and it's like 2.5 hours from Tucson, and those are your two major airports. But it's a beautiful scenic country drive from Phoenix, and there's not a lot of traffic, and it's a very enjoyable ride. And when you get into the town of Ajo, it literally has original buildings, original churches from the early 1900s, and it's a gem out in the middle of basically the Sonoran Desert that has literally not changed much in the last 100 years. And it's an incredible journey outside of just the fact of the paranormal buildings and happening that's going on at the Copper Canyon. But it's a wonderful, wonderful experience around.
Well, I love Arizona. I have not been to a part of it that I didn't find just glorious in the beauty. So, not a hardship.
It definitely has that. I wouldn't necessarily recommend August, but other than that, we've got about 10 months of just absolutely beautiful weather, and we're into that now. And of course, it's it's October, so we're into the Halloween season as well, which, I think naturally ramps up some of the paranormal activity that's happening out there. So it's really interesting stuff.
Well, I think that one of the things I'm most interested in is just experiencing the interior of this structure. It's just,
It
it looks so amazing.
it it is. And I mean, my wife and I have been in a lot of locations, but this one is unique. This one, I mean, the first time I stepped foot into it, I mean, I don't scare easily, but this one sent chills up my spine the entire night we were there. And there's just this feeling of being literally followed or watched every step you take, and it's unique. I've not experienced that to that degree anywhere else that we've been. And like I said, then we started going through the EVPs and the other data that we've captured. I was just blown away. And if you can, Kat, maybe play the one that says "What Smell"
Okay.
EVP, because that one, I was standing in what used to be the old kitchen, and I was alone. Now, granted, I'm talking to myself because that's what I do when I investigate. I literally talk to myself and ask my questions out loud. And this response comes in when I mention that the room had a particular smell to it, and this voice just comes out of nowhere, and it is so clear that it's a little frightening to hear. So go ahead and play that one.
I will. Here we go.
Okay, this room has the eeriest feeling of all of them so far. And the worst smell.
I'm going to play that again just in case somebody somehow missed that. That's so great.
Okay, this room has the eeriest feeling of all of them so far. And the worst smell.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, and it's so clear. And again, woman's voice. And so don't know if it was nurses, don't know if it was people working in the kitchen. Um, and I expected a lot more male voices. Now, we do have them. Some of the other EVPs that are there are definitely male voices. And even some, I believe, past doctors and who knows, patients, who knows who else. But that one fascinated me because it was just, I mean, it was clearly an absolute direct response to a direct question that I asked or stated, and it's really hard to refute that one as very clear evidence that they're there.
Right? That's what I love about these. I mean, they're all good.
Thank you. There, like I said, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming. We finally got through the data that we collected from the first time, and like I said, we've had other trips out there that I have not had an opportunity to go through yet. But it's just it's a unique experience, and it's good to get something out here in the western part of the states. I mean, in the East Coast and the Midwest, you've got, the big name ones. You've got Waverly Hills, you've got Penn State Penitentiary, you've got places like the Bel Air House, very well known for their hauntings and very great places, don't get me wrong. But the Southwest is very void of a place like this that investigators can go. And that was one of the reasons, especially for Arizona, because there's very little here. There are places to investigate, but they're operating hotels and you always have external influence. And we thought we need a place for Southwest investigators, or anyone for that matter, to go where they don't have any external influences as far as sound, as far as interruptions, at least from anyone else within their group. And when we saw this place and then worked out the negotiations and partnerships and everything else, this is an opportunity for paranormal investigators to go and actually get a 10-hour investigation, 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. Alone. They get let in, they get floor plans. They get a real brief tour so they don't get lost. I mean, it's 30,000 square feet, so it's a good sized building. And then they're on their own. They get to investigate, do whatever, bring any equipment they want, and they get a true night of capturing whatever they can capture. So it's exciting.
Do the spirits there have a particular type of interaction they seem to prefer, as far as you can tell?
Well, what I have noticed is, and we haven't even quantified yet how many are there,
Right.
but I mean, we've identified probably 15, 16 different ones already, and I guarantee you there's a lot more there. We are in the process right now of producing a short film to release for the Copper Canyon Paranormal Research Center, and of course we've done history, we've gone through old paper art, newspaper articles, trying to find out, deaths that happened, all sorts of the history, gunfights, and this hospital literally would take anybody who came. And at that time, it was at the top places to go for medical care. So people from Tucson came, people from Phoenix came down to this small town just due to the medical abilities that this hospital had. But there's such a rich history and such a long-standing historical interaction with this building that literally thousands of people died either from mining accidents, gunfights, all sorts of. So the amount of spirits that are actually or could be present in this building, we haven't even been able to touch those numbers yet.
Well, I just can't wait, because the more research you do and the more knowledgeable you are, the more people will be able to perhaps have a conversation by name or ask
Exactly.
yeah, because I think one of the saddest things is when a spirit has passed and nobody knows who they are and they're still there trying to have a conversation. I was somewhere recently that had three little girls who haunted it. Two of the children's names were known, and nobody had a clue about the third little girl. And I
Wow.
think that she was so reticent because no one spoke to her. There was
Wow.
no direct interaction by name with her because there's no record of her name. And I
Hmm.
think that's sad.
Very, very. And one of the things we noticed, and I don't know whether I gave you these EVPs or not, but we had at least 3 separate EVPs where they gave first and last name. Now, we have not had an opportunity yet to do the research on those names, but that's the very fascinating thing to us about when you can correlate getting an EVP and then historically researching that name and finding a connection.
Hmm.
That adds to the support. But you're absolutely right. But normally when we go in and we're doing EVP sessions, we may get a name, a first, but to have them literally come forward and give first and last name as their first statement, that was just amazing to
That's
us.
unheard of. Has that happened with
Exactly.
you anywhere else?
We've gotten names before, but never that direct. I mean, like I said, this building sat basically empty for the last 38 years, and maybe that had an effect that when people were actually then available and they knew that they could get a message across or communicate. I mean, they fully took advantage of that and said, "Hey, I'm so and so," and that name is very clear. And I'm not sure if I gave you one of those or not, but
You did
if
not.
not,
I don't see a title like
I
that.
yeah, I may not have just for sensitivity to whatever name that is without having done the research yet.
Right.
But yeah, we do have them, and it's amazing.
Well, what you sent is in its own right, but I think that's the coolest thing because I've never
Yeah,
had that reaction.
yeah, this was unique, and like I said, there's so many so many things about this building that just um, is just fascinating. And every time we go in, something else occurs. And I'm going to tell you this story real quick, and then maybe we can play those other EVPs that I had sent over. But we were when we're working on putting together this short film video that we're going to release for it. We had taken this producer in and we were showing him around, and we were trying to decide where to film, what rooms to use. And, he was telling me, I love working on this project. But he said, I'm very skeptical. And I said, that's okay. We're not here to convince you of anything. Well, he lasted about 13 minutes in the building. He got touched. We were standing down on the first level floor, and he comes up behind me, puts his hand on my shoulder, and he goes, "Do you hear that?" And I said, "Yeah, I do hear that." He goes, "What is that?" And my wife says, "That's a baby crying." And he goes, "Exactly." He goes, "There's no babies in here." I said, "No, there's no anything in here." He goes, and it lasted a good 2 minutes, and it kept crying, and it literally shook him up. And when he went back to do the other filming that we were doing, it was at night, and he's texting me, and he's like, "I'm going to be down there tomorrow night." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." He goes, "Well, I'm going to be filming after dark." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." He goes, "Dude, are you coming or not? I don't want to be in the building alone."
Well, so he's not a skeptic anymore.
No, not anymore. Not anymore. But it was interesting because he was so blown away by what he had heard that although we weren't investigating at the time, he literally recreated the event of what happened. And it's interesting to hear because he did such a good job recreating it that it gives me chills because I remember standing there hearing it. And so that was really interesting. But anyway, yeah, let's if you can, let's play some of those other EVPs I sent over just so people can get an idea of what I'm talking about how these EVPs come across.
Okay, well, how about the "Don't Scare Them"?
Yeah, that's a good one.
You guys.
That is so cool. Here we go again.
You guys.
That is so amazing. And now that was a male.
Right. And this is a funny story, but we know that voice, and that voice is not from that location.
What?
This is a spirit that actually resides. Well, I say resides because that's where we've picked them up for the last 5 years, is at the Hotel San Carlos. And his name is Christian. And when I heard that, I'm like, and then I played it for my wife. She goes, "That's Christian." And I said, "Exactly." So I can't explain it. I don't know, if he showed up there, if there was something he was protecting us from, but it's absolutely fascinating. That's not the first time that's happened. We've had a spirit show up at the Bel Air house that we had the recording and could recognize the voice. And but yeah, this one wasn't a resident of that hospital, so that was very interesting to us.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe he was letting you know not to scare the spirits. Maybe he felt like there was somebody that might be feeling vulnerable with having people show up like that, right?
Well, that's a very good point, because when you hear the responses, the interpretation is multifolded, because you're not sure who they're talking to. You could be absolutely correct. He could be talking to us saying, "Don't scare the spirits." He could be talking to the spirits saying, "Don't scare them." We don't know, but right. You're absolutely right. And there's another EVP that I sent you that we could probably play next, okay, where we're literally asking them to communicate. Now, this one's a little harder to hear, and headphones may be recommended to hear it, but it is on my page if anyone wants to go back and take another listen. But we're literally asking them, "We're here, communicate with us," and they literally ask are we safe?
Yes, this one's amazing. So, hopefully everyone has their headphones on or their buds plugged in, and here we go.
You don't have to be scared. You can come out and talk to us.
That sounded very trepidatious. Let's go ahead and play that again.
Right.
You don't have to be scared. You can come out and talk to us.
Yes, that's, as I said, they sound nervous. They're not sure that they want to do that.
Exactly. And like I said, that was the first night we had ever stepped foot in there. And so your comment about the last EVP about don't scare them. I mean, it very well, he could be talking to us, meaning don't scare the spirits that are in that building, because everyone else who heard it is always like, oh, how nice, they're not going to scare you. But you're absolutely right. I think it's the other way around. I think that he's saying to us, don't scare the spirits that are in the building, which is just absolutely fascinating to me.
Well, I mean, because they hadn't seen people. And all of these are from your first night. So
right.
Maybe Christian travels with you more than you know, and he was reading. That's kind of what I do. Okay. My gift is not,
right.
But is just kind of reading intent of spirits. And that's what I feel, is that they were excited to have people to communicate with, but you had equipment and they didn't know what that was. So maybe that was what he did.
I would completely agree with that hypothesis, because that's the exact feeling we had too. Was that, yeah, he was talking to us, or them, meaning the spirits that are in there. And I think you are right on track with that hypothesis.
So just a thought, but I think it's so, obviously you made them comfortable because they worked with you through the rest of the night, and they worked with you through everything else that you've done thus far. Out of curiosity, go ahead.
And that's very true, and much more to be done. And like I said, it's time limitations that are holding us back at the moment, which will free up as we get some of this other stuff concluded. But there's so many more questions we want to ask. There's so many more tests we want to do. But yeah, they have been receptive. They have been kind. We have not felt threatened. There was one.
You know what? You're going to have to stop right there, because that's a great stopping point, because I can't wait to hear the rest of this. But we have a 2-minute break. We'll be back on the flip side, guys. 2 minutes.
to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And we're back with Tony Rathman, who is just an amazing guest. We're having so much fun tonight on Paranormal Experienced. And if you've been missing these EVPs, you're going to have to catch the archives on iHeart and iTunes, because this is amazing. So, Tony, we were talking about how you were able to put these spirits at ease and that nothing really was alarming you except...
Yeah, except for one. And it wasn't the night that we were there investigating. It was later on when we were, and this was the middle of the afternoon, we were walking the building to do the filming. And as we're looking at different areas, my wife was actually standing behind me, and she was filming. It was just with her cell phone, but she was filming, and I could literally hear this EVP with my own ears. And I turned to her and I said, "Hey, did you hear that?" And I don't think she did at the time. And then I remember pointing again because they were talking, but I was trying not to say anything. And there's this EVP that comes on that says, "I don't like you." And he said something else in between. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. But then at the end, he said he threatened me, and I have not had a chance to figure out which one that is and what I can do to calm him down. But it was an amazing capture, because when we went back and we played her video, you can hear everything he said as I'm saying, "Did you hear that?" Oh, right there, he's talking. It's incredible.
That is incredible. Did you feel like you were being threatened, or like there was a presence with that attitude while you were sitting there?
Yeah, you could definitely feel the presence. I didn't feel threatened. It wasn't until after that we replayed the recording that I could hear what he actually said. And I was a little shocked, because it was a direct threat, but nothing has happened. And I have not had an opportunity to go back in there and try to figure out, what they're upset about or what this one is upset about. And that's definitely in my future plans to, try to figure out why this one may be angry and what we can do to maybe not make him angry anymore.
Well, it may just be that you are you strike me as a very gentle person, but you are a very strong personality. And it may be that he thinks he's the alpha and he just doesn't want anybody to be mistaken about that. What?
Well, and that very well could be the case. And like I said, after having complete authority over the last 38 years of the building, yeah, I'm sure our presence and the present investigators coming has an impact on them, no doubt about it. And I'm sure it's partially that that fight for authority, and who and of course we don't want those fights.
Well, of course
but
not.
We'll when I get back in there, obviously that's one of the things on my to-do list, is to try to get this spirit to communicate and maybe share a little more information about what he's upset about, and take it from there, because we have had this happen before and we were able to work it out, and so we'll see what happens.
Well, sometimes all it takes is just a good conversation, right? I mean, just
absolutely
clearing the air. In chat, we have a comment that says, he's probably territorial and protective. Like you said, he's been the only, maybe he's been the only alpha male in there for all this time.
And that could easily be the case. And of course, we're very respectful of that. And and like you said, it usually comes to communication. And although it's not like talking to another person where you can have direct we do get enough feedback usually when we're speaking to be able to know whether we've changed the attitude or changed the impact or the feelings associated with it. So hoping to be able to do the same thing with this one.
I hope so too, because it's just, I think that's an important thing. And on that note, I was going to ask you before the break, but you said that Ghost Adventures had been in there. And
They were, yep.
I know that Zach has a certain time frame and that he works within trying to get evidence by being a little provocative on occasion. And which is interesting because I've seen him be like that with, adult or difficult spirits, and I've seen him be very charming with child spirits. So he does react according to his situation. How was he when he was at the research center?
He did a good job. The coincidence between when Zach was there and there was a part of that, it was called the Old Phelps Dodge Hospital, and there was a section in that show where Zach recorded an EVP and Aaron said, I want to kill Zach. And it was so funny because when I had the recording of this spirit, that's exactly what he said to me. He said, I'm going to kill you. And when I was not even thinking about Zach's show that he shot in there. But when we went back and we double played both what he recorded and what I recorded, there's some very similarities in the tone of voice. And his to me, clearly, I heard exactly what Aaron heard.
Right.
And then when I had my own saying the same thing, I'm like, okay, this very well could be the same spirit.
Reacting the same way to the strong male personality. That's interesting.
Exactly. Right.
Because he is a fairly
Zach
strong
did a really good
personality.
job. Oh, very much so, yes. I mean, he did a good job, and like you said, they're limited on time, and their schedules are constrained. But he gave a brief history of the building, and most of it is accurate, and so I commend him on the work that he did in there. And but I can tell you there is a lot more going on than what he had time to research.
Well, I'm working on trying to get through his people to get an interview. I think that would be one of my favorite people to talk to because he's controversial, but he's kind. And
Right.
I think that the kind would win out over the controversial because everybody either loves him or hates him. There's not any middle ground. I kind of do take the middle
That's very
ground.
true.
I am not fond often of how he approaches spirits, but I do know he has time constraints and he's trying to get stuff done. But I also know that they adopted a dog in the middle of a shoot, right? So, because he sent it home with Billy. Somebody's taking this dog home.
I do remember seeing that.
And I know that he stopped shoots to meet people
kindness.
and, so that the fans can have their time with him too. And I know it's just because, if you get this taken care of, then you can get back to work, but you need to take care of the ones that brought you, right? And he knows that. So
right.
I know that other locations he's been awesome.
Yeah, and he shows that kind. He shows that kind personality in many situations. Mm-hmm. And you're right; it's difficult when you're shooting a television show because as a paranormal investigator. I mean, doing television alone changes the outcome of what you're trying to achieve. I mean, television has one goal, and that's to entertain. So yes. the true necessity of doing paranormal investigation sometimes takes a back seat to that. And he knows that, I'm sure, after doing it for 13, 14 years, however long he's been doing it. But you're right. He has that kind side of him, and that's been shown in many things, like you said, the dog being adopted, other situations where he's interacting with people and fans. So I mean, I give him a lot of credit for what he does.
I mean, he's not always kicking the door in and taking names. He's very gentle sometimes, and people forget that. So
Very true. Very true.
I tend to forget it myself sometimes when he does something, and I'm just like, oh, I would never do that. What are you know? And then I'm like, television, trying to get it done. Don't be judgy.
Right. Exactly.
So not,
Yeah,
not my
it's
chair, right? So
yeah, it's a struggle for him, I'm sure, each time, but I definitely give him credit for what he's accomplished.
yes. Well, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there, but I just wanted to know how he had interacted with your spirits. I'm glad that it was that it was a good experience, and I find it bizarre that he got the same
Yeah.
response you did.
Well, and I didn't even recognize it at first. Somebody else pointed it out to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. Friend of mine pointed out to me and said, that's the exact statement that was said, and I'm like, oh wow, you're absolutely correct. It was.
Yeah, I wouldn't be cool with the spirit saying they wanted to kill me, because
Yeah,
I was.
it's not.
Go ahead.
It's not the most comfortable feeling.
Well, and I was in an environment where I was actually concerned that my equipment was going to be damaged because they were banging on things that, you could hear the banging, but the objects weren't moving that they were banging on. And I just felt like,
Yep.
but they do move things when they take a notion.
They certainly.
So I was kind of like, oh, maybe not here, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah. What is the most odd investigation experience you've had? Because you don't just do EVPs, you do full-blown investigations, and that's actually a question from our chat.
Yeah, sometimes it's great to go to the historic sites, the buildings with reputations for being haunted, but sometimes, and I can't go into complete detail here, but it's sometimes the personal investigations, the home investigations that we do that bring out some of the craziest stuff we've ever seen. In fact, and like I said, I can't go into detail, but there's one that we're dealing with, the last one we did and the current one that we're getting into, the backgrounds, the evidence, and the things that show up, that's where the true uniqueness and sometimes the scariest things come out. And so like I said, I can't go into detail because they are personal investigations, but those are usually the ones that are the most rattling as far as being scary and unsettling. But I think our building will give it a good run as well.
Well, we are just about to the top of the hour. This time is going so quickly. We are going to be taking a 5-minute break, believe it or not. And this is a great time to stretch your legs, throw a few cartwheels, do what you need to do. And we'll be back. We have more EVPs. Tony has more stories from his experiences, or not stories, but descriptions. And we will be back in 5. Y'all just enjoy this.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experienced Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And just like that, we are back. Welcome to the second hour of Paranormal Experienced Radio. I am your host, Kat Hobson. I'm joined by Tony Rathman. If you missed that first hour, you've got to go back and grab it. It'll be out on iTunes, iHeart, Google Play, Podbean, and heaven only knows where else. So many outlets, and we appreciate all of them. And this has been fantastic as far as EVPs go. Tony brought a bunch of his work to share with us from the Copper Canyon Paranormal Research Center. And I got to tell you, I'm coming. I'm coming out there. This is astounding.
Great. Would love to have you, and anyone else who wants to experience this place. It's definitely worth the journey.
You know, I had mentioned to you when we started that this is the fourth Paranormal Research Center that has been dubbed such that I know the owners of. And I think it is so great that people are setting aside these places and maintaining them and making them safe for investigators to come into so that they can do this research and learn the techniques, learn their equipment, and perhaps find a method to communicate in such a way that we can understand how the spirits are still there. I love that you're doing that. That is
absolutely correct. And that was one of the purposes for it. I mean, obviously, as much investigating as we do and capturing, the real passion for us is to find out exactly, what's going on. Are these spirits stuck? Are they in limbo? Are they just on another plane where, whatever building they're in may look run down to us, but to them it looks as if it was, freshly built and brand new. Those are the answers that we're always searching for, is what life is like outside of this one. And hopefully not only for my wife and I, but for anyone else who is looking for a place to be able to try new tools or do investigations without outside influence or other people walking around talking, making noise, whatever the case may be. That's definitely one of the areas. And of course, we also want investigators to share what they've captured, so that other people can hear it, see it, understand that, hey, this occurs on a regular basis. And this is not a unique catch. It's not something that was, a fluke. This is a true response to a response that came back, out of thin air. But there's so many other things to capture in the building as well. So every group that comes in, every set of new tools that they may have or want to use or find out what they can capture with, those are all things that help build the research and help build the sharing of what was captured and the understanding of what's occurring. So that's the other big piece of why we're doing this. Well,
it's a huge deal, because I feel like spirits get, like when you walked in, they were so active because they hadn't had human communication. Well, living human communication.
Exactly. And, one of the things, this is a funny story, but one of the things my wife and I don't remember how long ago, a couple of months ago, we were having this discussion, but, if you think about, and we know only from responses that we've captured that they can hear us. Obviously, if I'm asking a question, they respond. They can see us. Imagine how frustrating it would be to be around your friends and family if you had passed, and you can see what they're doing, you can hear what they're doing, but they don't know you're there and they can't hear you. I mean, that would be very frustrating to know that, they want to try to console you or comfort you, and you're unaware that they're there. That, to me, would be very painful. and all of a sudden now they're interacting with people that have the ability to hear them, to record them, I mean, that I would, if I was a spirit and wanted to get a message across, I would be jumping at that immediately to take advantage of being able to get heard.
Absolutely. And that was actually depicted in Ghost. And at the time, when I was watching that movie, I don't even know how young I was. It was millennia ago. But I actually was like, oh my gosh, why does she not hear him? They were in love. This is a huge deal. And it was, even then, and that was before ghost shows and, Unity and all this other stuff. But that was something that I felt really deeply, and it's just weird. I didn't know at the time all the things that were going on with my psyche like that, but I thought it was just being overly emotional. So, with other people's emotions now, I know that.
No, but that's very true, and that thin veil between the worlds does exist, and until it breaks down, and once it does, then there's all sorts of other things that begin to be experienced from the spiritual side. But for people that may not have experienced any of it yet, that veil appears to be stronger, and the more you break through it, the more things come back, and it's an interesting experience. But like I said, over the last 8 years of us doing this, we can definitely see the stages where that's thinned, and where things now come through on a regular basis that we would have never noticed, heard, or paid attention years ago.
Right. I didn't. I know other people who were experiencing, clairsentience, clairaudience, whatever, and they just thought they were crazy. They had no idea what that was, and there wasn't a lot of support for that either. And fortunately, my grandma was New Age before there was New Age, so she helped with that a little bit. But it's really something to see the strides that we have made in understanding spiritual gifts and knowing how they're being utilized by spirits at different places, or just spirit guides who are helping you to know what other people might need. And here you are going in and just making assistance basically available to these spirits by the people that you're going to bring in. That's so amazing.
Thank you. And like I said, it hopefully it'll be an opportunity, especially for the Western states, to have a place where that acknowledgement of what's happening and the ability to capture will grow the entire paranormal community across the world, because that's very important to us as well. And that knowledge sharing, and that ability to say, hey, this was captured, this is legit, this is here it is, take a look, tell us what you think. But like I said, to give that opportunity to other people that can do that and experience it for themselves, and be able to come back and say, hey, look what we captured, and get that momentum going where everyone's sharing, and that's going to help hopefully that para-unity as well that we all know is suffering today.
Well, it is. I saw somebody discussing that, on Facebook today even, that were like, what do you think causes all the drama? And I tend to steer clear of drama, so I'm not always aware of it. But the answers seem to be ego, and then, somebody else said greed, and then somebody else said, well, just state the obvious, it's jealousy. And I think people are they're so afraid somebody is going to take their evidence and claim it as theirs. But is that really, because you can go back, you can timestamp it or whatever with your stuff, but I think it's really important that people do share. You were brave enough to come out in that contest, and the other entries were as well, the entrants, and say, this is what I got, check this out. and it was brilliant. You have to be willing to share information, because you know what? Just because you're who caught a recording or you're who got a picture doesn't mean that you're the only one who can. If you'll share how you did it, then getting your work duplicated by someone is a good thing. It means, it's confirmation for you, right?
That's exactly right. And the more people that get an opportunity to try it for themselves, and it doesn't matter whether you have, the latest and greatest equipment. You can go out with a cell phone and a digital recorder and get things that we capture. But the more people that can do that and capture it for themselves, and then take away that doubt that this is real and that it exists, that's what will cause the change to the paranormal that we need to happen. And the more of that sharing and the more of that group combined understanding of what's out there, that's what's needed. And egos aside and popularity aside, and I see those conversations as well all the time. People are trying to compete for whose evidence is this and that and the other thing. But the fact of the matter is, if it's legit evidence, it doesn't matter whether you get 2 likes or 10,000 likes. If it's legit and it was captured in a way that was marks it as proper evidence and a good EVP recording or whatever else the capture was, that's all that matters. You have it, you captured it, you know it's legit. Now share it.
Right.
Share it with the world.
And that also comes down to equipment, because if you got it, like we have Carl who said that he was getting names, first and last names and stuff with the Echovox. And if you're getting stuff and you share how you're getting it, then other people can utilize that equipment. And if it works for them, that's great. And if it doesn't, then they can say, well, yeah, that's not what worked for me, but I got this with that. And you can kind of get a feel for which equipment seems to be better for you. That is so true. I mean, both of us have specific equipment that works specifically and best for us. Mm-hmm.
I am big with the EVP, and I'm big with the SB7 portal. And there's other equipment that I like and I do use, but there definitely is a set of equipment, maybe 1, maybe 2 things that I'm just drawn to, and I will use them on a regular basis because that's where my best evidence comes from. My wife's the exact same way. It's not the same equipment. She prefers more of the simple things, just a recorder. She digital recorder, camera, video camera, night vision light. I'm more on the electronic side. I like to test other gadgets. I've used the Echovox and I've gotten some good stuff off of it. It's probably not my immediate go-to, right, but I'll try it because I have had results. But the more you use a piece of equipment, the more results you get. And so if you find one that works, I completely agree. Keep using it. Use it over and over and over. The more you use it, the more responses you'll probably get. And it's that connection with not only the device, but the spirits interacting with it that causes that continued interaction.
Yes. And, we are like 30 seconds away from another break. I can't believe how fast this time is flying. When we come back, I would like for you to set up and us play some of these other EVPs because they're really fantastic. And
that would be great.
They didn't just give their names. So I want to get to that too. And with that being said, we'll be back in 3. I'll just get a drink and enjoy this moment.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Hello there and welcome back. This is Paranormal Experienced. I'm Kat, your host, and I have Tony Rathman joining me tonight, who is one of the best EVP specialists I've ever heard, much less gotten to play with his recordings. And he doesn't do this alone. Cherie, his wife, is the other part of Haunted Entities, and she does a great job too. It is just definitely teamwork, isn't it, Tony?
It absolutely is. And although my wife's probably the quieter side of the two of us, it is only the two of us that do this.
Right.
But there are so many times, and I always try to point this out, but there are so many times that what we capture is usually her. She's always got a camera in her hand. She's always recording when we're in places that we know we may capture something. She's always running a digital recorder to capture sounds. And I would have to say 60, 70, maybe even 80 at times percent of the things that we capture, I would have missed if it wasn't for her, because she is always on target of rolling a camera, having something recording to be able to capture it. And so it's definitely a twofold situation, and I couldn't do it without her. There's no doubt about it.
Well, y'all do good. Y'all really do. I wanted to go ahead and share some more of these. Would you like to set some of them up? We've got... We have...
Sorry, go ahead, Kat.
Do you need me to tell you which ones I have?
I can't remember which ones we played already.
We've played Who Are These People? What Smell? Are We Safe? And Don't Scare Them.
Okay. I would think you could just go down the lines, the ones we haven't played yet, and go through them, because there are some good ones in there yet.
Yes. All right. This one is They'll Tell You. Do you remember the situation where you caught this?
I do. We were standing... there's a pediatric section of the hospital that's on the first floor of the building, and at the far, I guess, west end, east end of the building. And we were walking towards the corner to turn to go down the main hallway. And Cherie was recording me, and I was walking around with a digital recorder. And this EV threw on the recorder I was holding in my hand, just out of nowhere, and stated what you're about to play.
All right, well, let's do it. Here we go.
That.
Are there any spirits in here? Please say hello.
Let's play that again.
That.
Are there any spirits in here? Please say hello.
What on earth? I had a harder time with that one.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that one's a little harder to hear, but I was literally asking them if they were present, if they were here. Mm-hmm. And although that one blends in with both the talking of my wife saying something about a bat and me asking, but they the EVP literally says they'll tell you, meaning they'll let us know if they're here. And by saying they'll tell you, they literally let us know. They were right there with us.
They were just helping out. I could hear it starting under Cherie's voice. So I'm going to play that one more time.
Right.
I think it's cool.
Okay.
That.
Are there any spirits in here? Please say hello.
Yep. That's cool. Then we have Felt It, I do not have my glasses on. Feel it.
I think that one is, yeah. They, we were with couple other in the group the very first night we were there, and one of the other ladies that was there was her and I were talking, and you can feel the energy in this particular room. I think we were in the surgery room. I don't remember. But we were talking about the energy and how it literally was intense and tingly, and this voice comes in and literally says, feel it. And it's a great EVP as well.
All right, well, let's do it.
I feel like I have an electric current going through
Right.
me.
Yep. And it's strong.
Yeah,
It's very strong.
it's like vibrating.
Yep. Step in there. It's awesome.
Oh, there's a cool breeze in here. Oh, because there's a window. Hello. Here you go.
That's amazing. I'm going to play that for y'all again.
I feel like I have an electric current going through
Right.
me.
Yep. And it's strong.
Yeah,
It's very strong.
it's like vibrating.
Yep. Step in there. It's awesome.
Oh, there's a cool breeze in here. Oh, because there's a window. Hello. Here you go.
That's astounding. I like that because just as she gets it, right?
Right, and it's very clear, and although on that particular one there are multiple people talking, you can still hear it, and you can hear it clearly. We weren't necessarily expecting, we weren't doing an EVP session. We just always have recorders running, and this just comes out of nowhere and gets put into the conversation, and they're like, yep, the energy's here, feel it. And it's incredible.
Don't you find that they always try to just be in your conversation? It's like they're interested. They want to participate with you.
Yeah, one of the things that we've noticed over the years is you are absolutely correct. When we're having a conversation, we will get more interaction and more EVPs than when we're just sitting and asking. If we're sitting quiet and we're asking, one question and then waiting and then ask. When we're actually interacting with each other, we'll get more interaction. But then people always say to us, hey, you're doing an EVP session. Don't you know you're supposed to not be talking and you're supposed to only ask a question and then wait 20, 30 seconds before you ask another one? Okay, yeah, we've done that for years. But what we notice is if we're just having normal conversations between the two of us, that we will get interaction that we never expected if we had been following those typical EVP standards of how you're supposed to do it. Now, I agree sometimes it can wreck it when we don't do it that way, but we've also found that we've gotten responses that have blown away anything following those standards.
Because they want to participate. I found that too. So
absolutely.
This is about belief, and it's very short, but do you want to set it up or you want me to go?
Well, we were standing down one of the main halls, and I can't remember off the top of my head whether I asked the question or my wife did. And this one's funny because rarely do my wife and I disagree at what is being said, but this one we did disagree. I heard about belief, and she says, no, this one says, I'm about to leave. And after she said that, I heard that as well. So it's either about belief or it's I'm about to leave. Sometimes with EVPs, as you know, it's very hard, and we always try to get secondary opinions. What does everybody hear? Because unless you can get a consensus on, people hearing the same things, that helps the understanding that your EVP is consistent and heard correctly. But this is one that we did disagree on, but we'll see what the listeners think, which one they hear.
Alrighty, and here we go. I'm not sure. Let's listen again. I'm going to have to go with Cherie. But where would you be going?
Yeah, you know what? I not sure, but it's good to hear that if that's what it says, that they can leave.
Yes.
So that makes me happy. But when Cherie said that to me and I listened to it again, I'm like, I think you're right. I think this does say about to leave.
People always assume that if you come across a spirit and is communicating with you, that it must be trapped and we must set them free. And I used to believe that also, but I think it's very presumptuous because I've never died. So just because I feel like I'm doing someone a favor by crossing them, helping them cross, whatever, I'm not necessarily. I mean, who knows? But I just decided that I'm not even going to do that anymore. I've been in two situations where spirits were kind of being bullied by another spirit. I always call them soul collectors because they just don't want to be alone. And I just tell them that, you don't have to stay here if you don't want to. You can do what you want, you're still you. Both times the person that was holding them was very upset with me, but they got over it. So it's good to know that they can come and go at will. That's kind of confirmation. So thanks for that. And this one.
Yeah, and we.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say we agree with you completely on that aspect. It's not always, they're not always trapped. Now, if they're calling out for help, if they're asking, specific things that clearly show that they need assistance, but the majority of the ones that we've come across are not trapped, are not stuck, are not missing some vital link to be placed somewhere else where they should be. They are doing exactly what their free will is allowing them to do. And they have the choice to change it or redefine it or however they want. And so I agree with you completely that not every spirit you come across is trapped or stuck or needs to be crossed over.
Well, and sometimes the help they need is simply getting a message, to someone, or it's not necessarily liberation.
Right.
But like in the instances that I mentioned, it's really weird because I was guest investigating with the same team both times this happened. I know they think I'm crazy. It was a spirit that was a human spirit that had convinced these people that he had dominion over them. And so they couldn't leave. They had to stay there. And when I walked in both places, I was like, oh, no. Only your creator has dominion over you. He has dominion over this guy, too. So you can go where you want to go. You don't have to stay here. And the first time I had that experience, I got like this huge wind through my face and hair, and the men sitting on either side of me were gone. And then the second, right. Well, and then the second time, a door over behind the couch opened, and the people that were, just kind of hanging with us while we were seeing if this house was haunted, the woman levitated off the couch, right? And I had no idea what's happening. I'm just like, we're safe. It's okay. But of course I didn't see the door open either, so I wasn't, but I had no idea. But anyway, so they don't like it when you do that, but you can't be a bully no matter what your life stage is. So this.
Very true. Very, very true.
And some people are. I mean, if you're a schmuck when you're alive, you're a schmuck when you're dead, right? It just seems to roll that way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, personality, you're taking the same outlook on, life into, or death's probably not the right word, but over to the spiritual realm. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure it takes some time to be able to rebalance that back out, and maybe that's the plane they're stuck on in order to rebalance that back out before they move on. Who knows?
And sometimes I think they just like, being here. I think you get to do what you want to after you go through whatever processing there may be or whatever.
I agree.
So this last one has your name on it.
Yes, it does. We have had our names called out in locations we had never stepped foot in before, and sometimes it's first name, sometimes it's last name, This one is my first and my last name, spelled out, sounded out very clearly. The end of Rathman is a little weak, but the Tony Rath, I mean, you can hear it very clearly. And like I said, that was the first time I had ever stepped foot in this building, and they're calling me by first and last name.
Wicked cool. Here we go, guys.
Kind of like a kid.
All right. Let's play that again in case somebody didn't get it.
Kind of like a kid.
I just can't believe that. When I was loading this on here, I played that just to make sure I had, everything loaded properly. And it blew me away. I was so surprised because, I didn't know that was your first time in the structure when I was listening to these. And now that you tell me that, I'm even more surprised because that was a definite calling you out.
It was. And I mean, like I said, the whole connection to this building, I think, is bigger than, at least for me personally. Like I said, I always was drawn to it. And then we finally get into it, and they're calling me by first and last name in a building I had never stepped foot in prior. Right. And of course, that grew the connection. And I think there's a lot of stuff happening that I'm yet to experience in this place, and so looking forward to the opportunity to find out what's going on. And like I said, as well as give other people who are interested in the paranormal and do investigations the opportunity. 10 hours of the building's yours. Investigate, capture everything you can. So
I gotta tell you, I think that it's just the coolest thing ever that all of these came in your first night visiting there. Did you have any idea what to expect going in? I mean, no one had been in there. You were it, right?
Yeah, there were, outside of Ghost Adventures, there was 2 groups that had gotten in prior. And I remember finding a newspaper article from a husband and wife as well that were in there probably, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. And of course, the stuff that they had experienced very similar to the things still going on today. But it has been very secluded as far as the people that have got the opportunity. But that's one of the things that makes it unique, is that this whole process of interacting with the investigators that are in there is unique compared to places that have been visited over and over and over and over and over. And right now is the opportune time to experience that, because that connection and that need for interaction is at its height right now.
Yes. And it's just a beautiful thing. I'm really looking forward to this, and I hope that I can get there this summer, because apparently I can only go to the desert in the heat of the summer. But we will be back, right? We will be back in 2 minutes, and we're taking our final break. Y'all enjoy this.
to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And we are back. Thank you so much for being here and enjoying all of these fantastic EVPs with us. You've really surpassed yourself with these. And I've been impressed with your work for a long time, and these are just amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that greatly. But I gotta give some credit to the spirits that are giving us this information, because it's not just me. It's a connection with them. And so I got to give them credit as well. Credit to trust me enough to be able to capture it, being in the right place at the right time. And it's a two-way street. And I think
really
hopefully
is.
my wife and I have built a reputation with them, for them to trust us enough to give us this information. Because I know lots of investigators that go out and come back and say, well, I got nothing here, or we didn't. Well, I think some of it is that relationship building process, and sometimes that takes time.
It does. And, I'm glad to hear you say that, because so few people acknowledge that need, and it's real.
Yeah, that's true. It's very real. It's very real. And the stronger that trust and that understanding and that acknowledgement that this is not just some fairy tale. This is really happening. These voices we're recording, we're hearing, they're there, they're responding. It's that belief that they're really there. You have to truly believe it. If you don't, chances of you getting this type of response is probably hindered by that disbelief that they're actually there.
I would agree with that. Another place that I have been that is a true research center is the old Paulding Jail. And the person who owns that jail has a portal running almost all the time when she's there. It's a very odd thing to be, slicing tomatoes or cucumbers and be having a conversation with a spirit who is coming through the portal to ask you why you're fixing that or what are you doing. It's a direct interaction.
Yeah, and it absolutely is. And just by the fact that they know what you're doing, they can see what you're doing, and they can ask a question about that, takes any doubt away that
Right.
It's a direct interaction.
And for the record,
Yeah,
these are the
completely
same
agree.
spirits that I ticked off so bad that they were banging on things. We had to come to an understanding. So,
Whoops.
yes. Well, it was inadvertent, but I could understand after the fact why they were so upset. So, and I just explained to
Sure.
them that I didn't drive 14 hours to be ugly. I was there to get answers. And eventually we came to, like I said, an understanding. And when I left, my radio skipped. I was listening to Sirius, and it skipped off the song it was on and started playing Alison Krauss's Ghost in This House. So I figured they were telling me bye. Nicely.
Wow, that's
So,
an amazing, almost too coincidental to be coincidental.
right?
That's funny.
So apparently they can
Yep.
control your satellite radio too.
I'm sure they can. I've seen them manipulate electronic devices far beyond what I ever thought imaginable. So I'm sure they can easily manipulate a Sirius radio.
I have been so blown away by the things that I have seen like that. And I know that you have done the electronic side of things much more in depth and longer than I have. What seems to be the biggest draw? What seems to pull them into your conversation above all else?
Well, that's a very good question. It depends, I guess, on whether we're out at a location. A lot of the ITC devices, the portals, the spirit boxes, there's only a couple of apps that I use, Echovox being one of them, and the other one is a app that's not even available yet, that was given to us to test. But depending on where the devices are used, a lot of the ITC stuff I will do actually in my home. And there are people that say, oh, you don't do that. You don't want to draw them into your home. Well, guess what? Whether I want to draw them into my home or not, they're already here.
Right.
And whether they followed us or whether they are looking to communicate. And when I turn on a box at home, that is when I usually get the clearest, the most direct responses, because they are literally here waiting for me to turn it on to communicate. And when we go out to locations, there's, they're maybe unsure, they're maybe not sure how to use it, whatever the case may be. But the ones that are around and waiting, knowing I'm going to turn it on twice a week or whatever my schedule is for that device, they're literally here waiting for me to turn it on, and that's when the interactions are the strongest.
That's very interesting, because I have always been told, don't investigate in your own home. I had something going on a couple of weeks ago. It was driving the dogs crazy. Somebody was in the kitchen moving things around and, just basically banging on a few things, and the dogs are looking at me like, really, you have to fix this. And so I just turned on a voice recorder and I said, okay, who's here? I'm listening. Obviously you have an issue. And my eardrum started vibrating. And I was like, no, not in my ear. I need you to vocalize so that I can hear you on the recorder, because I can't hear you when you're vibrating things. And I got something. I couldn't understand it even using AudioVox, but not Audacity. But it was, I was hoping that I would be able to have a clearer understanding of what was said, because obviously someone was upset. That's the only time I've ever actively tried to investigate in my house. Maybe I should do it more often.
Well, like I said, it's a touchy subject. Most people are like, don't do it. But for Cherie and I, it works because we haven't had anything bad happen. We have gotten great communication, and we've gotten answers to things that, I think if we were out actually at the investigation site, I think would be harder to get when I'm sitting at home. I'm usually alone, or Cherie's here with me, or whatever the case may be, but it's only two of us, and they may not feel threatened, or whatever the case may be. There may be a variety of different reasons for different spirits, but we have noticed that on a scheduled night at a scheduled time, if we use a particular device, that's when the responses come in. But that response that you got, that you said you couldn't quite understand,
right?
If you still have that response, send it to me, because we know some tricks to clearing it up. And being able to pull out things that are maybe not readily heard, but send it to me. Send me the audio file and let me see if I can clean it up for you.
I will do that, because I shared it with a few other people, but no one else could pick anything up either. I think whatever it is was important, because obviously somebody was feeling less than happy, and I don't want anybody at my house feeling that way.
And if they took the time and the energy if they took the time to try to leave the message, they had something that they definitely wanted to express. So
it's so funny, because I have a puppy that's not used to my house. She's only been here a couple of months, but the older dogs were just like, really fix that. And I'm like, we'll give it a shot, guys. So I just thought that was funny. We don't get that much. But I'll send that to you when we get off of here.
Yeah, perfect. I'd love to be able to see what I can do with it. Maybe pull that message out so you can have that understanding and maybe what they were trying to say.
That would be great, because I don't know, when you do that, do you just have like a quiet zone at home when you sit down to do your sessions?
Yes, I do. We will, and like I said, the point of doing it is usually at the same time, on the same days. using the same equipment, and of course, absolutely eliminating any outside or external noise factors, whether that be radios, television, kids, whatever the case may be. But that controlled environment is absolutely crucial to being able to make it work as it needs to.
Well, I agree because, we had that. The only thing that was on was the recorder. And because my phone was next to me, I just picked it up and hid it for my voice recorder. The vibrating in my ear was very weird. I don't usually get that at home. And if I'm out somewhere, that's when I know that something is trying to communicate or someone is trying to communicate, and I start focusing. And sometimes I can get it. Usually it's on my recorders. But
that's the nice thing about EVPs on recorders, is because there's no denying. I mean, unless you have external noise that could influence what you think you're hearing. But if you're in a quiet environment and you get a voice that comes in that is not your own, then you know you've captured something. Then if you get the experiences, like you said, the other external factors that support the EVP that you captured, your ears ringing. Yeah, maybe they were initially trying to speak right to you. And when all that stuff adds up, it's really hard to deny then a voice that's saying something on a recording, even if you can't necessarily, like you said in this case, make it out. But you know that connection was made and that attempt was done to try to communicate something of importance to you.
And I just felt like, I don't know if it was what one of my friends who's a psychic calls the grannies that are here. And they would die if they heard themselves referred to that way. Or if it was, seriously, they would have a fit. Or if it was just, because it sounded like somebody was looking for a pan.
Wow.
I'm not going to look for a pan in the mornings because David's at work and I don't have to cook him breakfast, right? And he cooks a better breakfast than I do anyway. But it was just so odd that, it's like,
right.
What are you doing? What are you looking for? Who is doing that? I find it funny that the dogs will know before I do when somebody's here.
Yeah, pets are very attentive to noticing something of the paranormal, sometimes even lots of times before people are, just because they're sensitive to it as well, and they can usually notify you, hey, if the dog's barking, growling. We've seen our dog do that many times at staring into areas that, we don't see anything, but obviously he's sensing something, he's interacting with something. And we've seen some strange stuff occur in the last, I don't know how many years, but it is interesting to experience and see those interactions between, like you said, a pet and what appears to be some sort of paranormal activity.
It'll trip your brain on occasion.
That it will.
Well, tell people how to find you, Tony, because we are just right out of time.
All right. Well, real quick, to find me, Facebook's probably the easiest. Just Tony Rathman. Just type in Tony Rathman. You'll go right to my paranormal Facebook page. We are also entityvoices.com for our website. If you're looking for the Copper Canyon Paranormal Research Center, you can find that at www.coppercanyonprc.com.
I'll tell you, it looks amazing. I can't wait to get the chance to get out that way. Thank you so much. I've had the best time with you. It's just been too long. It's been 5 months since we spoke. I didn't realize it had been so long.
It has been, and a lot's happened in between. So yeah, we'll have to make sure we don't let 5 months go by again.
Absolutely. I am going to just tell everybody thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate every one of you. We'll catch you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. Good night.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.